Hello, BookTube. I have an interesting sort of sing-songy poem to read to you today. I went to the Oxford Book of English Verse, the Helen Gardner edition, uh, one of two Oxford books of English verse that I have. And the reason that I went back to this volume is odd, chilling, one might even say. I had, once upon a time, a battered, older version of this that didn't have a dust jacket. And I waited until I knew I would find a copy in new condition at the Bramall Bookshop, and I did. Eventually, I did. I found this in 2020, uh, and got rid of the older copy that I had of this edition without a dust jacket. And when I did that, I was under the very strong impression, a very strong memory, that naked hardcover that I had was the only edition of this book that I had ever had. The other day, I was rooting around in a desk drawer looking for some mailing labels as part of a drive to get all of my mailing stuff under precise Tiger Mom control. And I came across this. This is the spine of this book, cut from the rest of the dust jacket, trimmed, and then laminated into a bookmark. So at some point, I had a copy of this book with a dust jacket, separate from the one without a dust jacket. At some point, I had this copy and got rid of it. No idea why. Of course, this will now become the bookmark that sits in this book. So that was the reason I went back to this book. I had to anyway. I thought I'd find something to read to you, and I did. I found a poem called "The Wish." That is, it's not that long. It should be fine. We should be fine. The Wish. Let me see here. Do I have a date on this? No, I don't. It was the 1660s, but I don't remember the exact date. Anyway, this is The Wish by Abraham Cowley. Well then, I now do plainly see this busy world and I shall ne'er agree. The very honey of all earthly joy does of all meats the soonest cloy, and they, methinks, deserve my pity, who for it can endure the stings, the crowd, the buzz, the murmurings of this great hive, the city. Yet ere I descend to the grave, may I a small house and a large garden have, and a few friends, and many books, both true, but both wise, and both delightful too. And since love ne'er will from me flee, a mistress moderately fair, and good as guardian angels are, only beloved and loving me. O fountains, when in you shall I myself eased of unpeaceful thoughts espy? O fields, O woods, when shall I be made the happy tenant of your shade? Here's the springhead of pleasure's flood, here's the wealthy nature's treasury. Where's all the riches lie that she hath cornered and stamped for good? Pride and ambition here only in far-fetched metaphors appear. Here naught but winds can hurtful murmurs scatter, here naught but echo flatter. The gods, when they descended hither, from heaven did always choose their way, and therefore we may boldly say that 'tis the way to thither. How happy here should I and one dear she live and embracing die, she who is all the world and can exclude in deserts solitude. I should have then this only fear, lest men, when they my pleasures see, should hither throng to live like me, and so make a city here. And there we see sentiments that go all the way back to Horace, about a citified, sophisticated, slightly ennui-riddled poet longing for a perfect, simple life, a little cottage, a few books, a loving helpmeet, that sort of thing, and the ability to distance himself from crowds. And it's metrically interesting, but it shows that the risk you run when you do end rhymes, when you do a regular sing-song rhythm, you have to be really good at it to avoid clunkers. And you'll know when you're not hitting a clunker because it will be beautiful. What was an example? O fields, O woods, when shall I be made the happy tenant of your shade? Notice how not only do those rhymes work perfectly well, but so does the rhythm of the sentence. you do naturally pause after made. There's a natural line break there, even if the poem weren't arranged that way. But what were some of the others? Oh, ah, yet ere I descend to the grave, may I a small house and large garden have. Grave and have doesn't work. And I know poets have all sorts of technical terminology for how that's intentional. I'm sure that's very comforting. But nevertheless, if you were Alexander Pope, you would have made that work. That doesn't work as well as the case of one that does. Uh, and I think it's very interesting, just a touchy thing. It's the wish. That's what this writer is wishing for. This writer, Abraham Cowley, had an utterly fascinating life. I know this is just a broken record by this point, but he had an utterly fascinating life and has no biography. He was the very child prodigiest of child prodigies. He was writing finished metrical work when he was a toddler. I mean, look at, if you have a toddler in the room now, they're probably a gibbering idiot. This guy was writing poetry at that age, that same age, with no formal instruction at all, other than the Fairy Queen. He loved the Fairy Queen and read it endlessly. But that's autodidactic, and he was self-taught. Anything that he saw there, but at the same, I mean, the kid, the little loser that's in the room with you now, that's 4 or 5 years old, can't do anything. This Abraham Cowley was writing verse at that same age that's so good that you couldn't, until 100 years ago, find it in poetry anthologies like this one. That's just amazing, and he kept on doing that. And like almost everybody else in England, he had to pick a side. When Parliament went to war with the king, he had to pick a side. Whose side are you on? Are you a royalist or are you not? And he was a royalist, and he was not only a royalist, he was a pretty dedicated royalist. He didn't lose his head for it, but he had a very active role in correspondence between the king and the queen, a very active intermediary sort of amanuensis role. Did lots of other things too, was very, very involved in the literary world and the political world. It would make a great biography. I would love to read a biography of this guy, and yet, as far as I know, no biography has been written of him in at least the last 100 years. Why is that? Is it just that university presses, which is, let's be realistic, where such a biography would find a home, they would no normal publisher, no mainstream publisher would run the thing. But why don't university presses do it? Is it just because they're part of academia, so they're entirely caught up in intersectional alt-left lunacy, and that's all they want to write, that's all they want to finance books about? Is that it? Is that the reason? So, Abraham Cowley was not only a white dude, I won't say I won't say he was heterosexual, despite all the longing in this poem for a beauteous woman just like himself. I won't go so far, and I don't think if you knew the facts you would go so far either. But is that the reason? Because not only was he a white dude, but also because he was a royalist? So you can't write a biography of him in 2022, in current year, you can't do it. Is that the reason? But then that wouldn't explain why it didn't happen in the 1950s or the 1960s or the 1980s, the last time that the world actually made sense. It wouldn't explain that. And as far as I know, in America, there were no biographies even then. I would love to read one, is what I'm trying to say. I would love to read one. I would also like a very big 1,000-page annotated edition of all this guy's poetry. There's quite a bit of it is pretty good. I'm hoping that you liked The Wish. I thought The Wish was lovely. Lots and lots of metrical twists and turns going on there, showing a very active mind involved in versification. But anyway, that's our poem for today. We'll see. We come up with something maybe a little more modern. Maybe we move forward a few centuries for next time. We'll find out. And I'll let you know. Obviously, it's random chance that will determine which anthology I pick up. But we'll see. I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.